Hello and welcome to AEF TV in association with Engerati. We're here at Africa Energy Forum in Barcelona on a lovely day, and we're joined by Dr. Sam Amadi. Dr. Amadi, thanks for making the time to be here. And Dr. Amadi is the chairman and CEO of the Nigerian Electricity Regulatory Commission. Which is a long mouthful, long job title, and lots of things to do. Because we were talking off air a little bit, and really the main part of your job has been the whole privatization process in Nigeria. Tell us a little bit about that, and sort of some of the challenges that you were facing, and where you are at the moment in that journey.
I think Nigeria is having probably the largest single privatization efforts in Africa and possibly most of the world, where we are selling off 18 companies, 11 distribution, 6 generation, and giving the management contractor to run the transmission. It's this is the volume of investment coming is huge, and there's so much confidence because this is being run on clear rule-based approach. What we've done is that we understand that the success of privatization depends on confidence in the industry. If people feel confident, they can invest. So the rules are laid out clear, the process is very transparent, and we had over 300 strong global brands coming in to the process of pre-qualification and a technical bid and financial bid. We got for at least each of the assets more than 4 strong international company partner with local company.
And that shows huge confidence that for every single one you were choosing between 4 different viable companies.
Absolutely, and the reason for that confidence is first, political authority. The government clearly insulated itself from the process, got the Bureau for Public Enterprises to design the process in a transparent way, got the World Bank involvement, international project managers were involved, international advisory outfits. Above all, the regulator came in strongly. We have a process and we made sure that the playing field was level. So this is the best we've got in the country. We've had experience before, and the benchmark of the success is that in the last one we did, there was no single protest, no single case in the court, no single case to the National Assembly. Unlike in the past, we are losers always write petition, but this is clear, and those who lost the bid were satisfied that this was a clearly transparent and the process that.
And if clearly, you're passionate about it. You're excited about the success of it, and it's been well documented about where that journey has got to. If you could give advice to another African country that's looking to follow something similar, because when someone looks at a success, they see the tip of the iceberg. What was the hardest thing you had to sort of fight and lay down in terms of being able to achieve?
I think the most important thing is to have a regulator in place. This is critical. We've had experience in the past privatizing other utilities, not power, without a regulator. So that led to capture, that led to straw men, weak companies, probably through a political negotiation, getting control of the assets. So first get the regulator. The number 2 thing is that there must be strong commitment to the political authorities to insulate themselves. And the way to do that is to create a transition process that is managed by an entity that is not in government, even though it's a government entity, but insulated through a process of appointment. You get advisory support that is probably with international support like the World Bank. So create a process that makes it difficult for you to game that process. That's very important. And thirdly, I think, you see, the success depends on the interest that investors show. If there's no regulatory certainty, if there's little transparency and accountability, you will attract major brands to endorse that process. So what we did in Nigeria is that as a regulator, we were the first agency in the country to openly subscribe to code of conduct. So everybody knew that, look, these guys mean business. They have made it difficult for themselves to be compromised. They made it difficult for them to read the rules. And then each of the process for the opening of the bids televised live. So the idea is to create publicity, to remove all kinds of backroom dealings, and I think that
create that transparency then as well. It's like going, here's what, because that's been one of the things where I read recently an Ernst & Young report into the into Africa, and they did a piece of research with sort of 500 senior execs, and said, and there was a marked difference between companies who are already in Africa and understand it and have a legacy of being there, to the perception of companies who aren't in Africa. And one of the things you touched on was kind of key, which is about the sometimes perceived lack of transparency and the way business is done. So when you set yourselves up as a regulator, how did you make sure that you're a regulator with teeth? Because you have regulators, but you have regulators.
I think this is important because the critical thing about this kind of transaction in the emerging markets or underdeveloped economy is perception, not even the real, availability, the real point about corruption, but the perception. So what we did is, first and foremost, we started quickly to assert ourselves as independent regulator. We did not get ourselves locked in the normal government apparatus. We created a niche for ourselves as independent, competent, independent, and transparent. So, and then not just being transparent, but be known as being transparent. So we did a lot of communication. We got ourselves in the public domain. We demonstrated our competence. We demonstrated our independence. We demonstrated our capability to take hard decisions and stick to it. Even as we gave private sector opportunity to participate, we made it clear that a regulator is run by a grid, rule-based grid, and a regulator is efficient, a regulator is consultative, and the regulator is able to take decisions that are hard. So it's critical for us that we open the process up for public participation. All our decisions are on website. We put all our decisions, actions on website. We give public notice and invite comments from the operators. So along the road, every transaction, we get the bidders, we get the business communities to be involved. So that kind of created for them, apart from notion of independence and transparency.
It's a real...
There's a real accountability, real transparency and independence, and then they could come in and play. So I think the idea is to know you are shaping mentality. Yes, there's a perception of risk in Africa, but the moment you engage and play the game openly and demonstrate that capability and that transparency, you are reshaping perception. And once the pattern of the business community changes, you see a drove into the market. So it's like electronic heads. They behave like animal. They behave as if they are wired. So they get the idea this is risky, they pull back. They get the idea that these people are ready.
So what was the hardest decision you had to make as a regulator?
The hardest decision we made as a regulator was deciding to create a cost-reflective tariff. It was difficult because the political environment was not very convenient. A new government came to power with a strong opposition. Power is a major political issue, and the idea that people have no regular power supply and low connectivity, and you are still going to increase the tariff was big. But what we did was to say, you know what, go out and communicate it. But at the same time, we were transparent with the process of the review. We made a strong argument that without a cost-reflective tariff, you wouldn't even have the supply to improve. So we delinked tariff and improvement. We say, look, you got to get the tariff right to even have a sense of improvement in the future. And then we got the politicians to key in and line up with the action. Initially, it was politically difficult to sell. But we were able to stay on message. I said, you know what? This sector collapsed because it had a depressed tariff. And this sector can only come back to life if you have a tariff that covers the cost and allows recovery and, of course, gives a reasonable return on investment. So the point here is we took the risk. And then when we were unshakable, when we were committed and resolute, the political authority lined up and the consumer. 6 months down the line after the tariff, we've not had a major backlash. So it's both the power of communication and the power of transparency. I helped that I used to be a leading human rights lawyer in my country, and I put my credibility to put on the line.
Well, that must have been a hard sell, because energy is, a political football sometimes, not just in developing countries, all around the world, and that whole thing. So we're coming to the end of our time here, and we're clearly at AEF, so let's bring it back to the event. What are some of the things you're looking forward to in terms of being here? We're at the kickoff, so I can't ask you what happened, but what are the things you're looking forward to?
Well, I'm a regular AEF attendee, and I believe in this platform because one of the best, because it brings everybody together, diverse experience, those in the investment world, operators, developers, government. So I kind of think this is where you get insights that you might not read in books and papers. This is where you connect to real actors who are trying to make changes in this sector. This is where you get refreshed and then gain perspective on the problems you are dealing every day. So for me, this is a time out to go to the balcony, and have a reflection on what we are doing, and then come and say, how are we doing well? And then you get refreshed, you get more knowledge, new insight, and of course you make new connections and new networks. So a great event, and I'm always happy to be here.
No, and thank you for being here, and thank you for making the time. So that's been all for this interview. We're trying to go for a record here. We're trying to do 33 interviews with all the senior delegates we've got here and speakers. So I hope you watch that on the Engerati and the AEF websites, and thank you for watching this interview, and thank you again for your time.
Thanks a lot.
Okay.